to get all the information out on the table, look at all of the information you have, and then develop a solution or a path or something else to try. That all came from my training in school. So that was very useful in my bachelor's degree. And then I got a job working at McDonnell Douglas before they became Boeing. So I was there for 5 years, and they had this fantastic program where they paid you to go to school at night, which was great. So I got my master's degree at Maryville, which has been spectacular, because what I got out of that is how to organize a plan, create a plan over time, and implement that. The thing I found out, though, transferring from school to work, is in school, any project in the entire world could be completed in 3 months, right? That's how long the semester was. And I was sure that this was how it was. And then I went to work when I was at McDonnell Douglas, I was looking around at these different groups of people, and they would spend years working on a project. I'm like, what are they milking these projects for? So I thought it was ridiculous that they were taking more than 3 months to do a project, because I knew all projects could be done in 3 months. Just like the innocence of my brain at different times, it was really interesting, but sometimes that innocence gives you like access to something that other people don't have access to. So I did well at McDonnell Douglas. They labeled me a high pot. I didn't know what that was at the time. I was hoping that it was good. And what it meant was a high potential individual. I was like, oh, that is good. I'm not so crazy about the nickname, but that works for me. So, I started getting involved in management, and at the same time I was doing that, I launched another company, a lawn care and landscaping company with a couple of business partners. It was interesting. I would work with a lot of union people. I was in management. And union people always have something else going on. Do you know this about union people? So they have their job, but then they've got some other thing going on all the time, just in case. Like it's sort of in red. Like if something bad happens, then I have my bait and tackle store, or I've got my electrical repair business or something like that. So, which was smart. So I'm like, well, I definitely need something extra going on. And so I had my lawn care and landscaping business for about 10 years and ended up selling it later. But when I was at McDonnell Douglas, one of the fun things that happened to me was I got fired. I never tell people I got fired, because it's like, who would tell anyone you got fired, right? And so I lost my job at McDonnell Douglas after 5 years, and I was devastated. I was so upset. And I couldn't figure out why I was upset. And what I noticed was I was upset because I did something wrong. And something about me is I always want to do the right thing. It's like my natural way to be in the world. And I had done something wrong, and they didn't want me to be there anymore. So I was very disappointed about that. I went home, I was devastated. I had a job in 24 hours, right? So I wasn't upset for that long. And my next job, I made 50% more money in the first year and double the money by the second year. I was like, oh my God, thank God they fired me. Because what I found in a big company in McDonnell Douglas was you would spend all year working, and at the end of the year you'd meet with your boss, right? And your boss would say, you've done a great job this year, and if you've done an extremely good job, you would get a 3.2% raise. And if you did a really mediocre job, you'd get a 2.1% raise. I had a problem with that. Like, that did not work for me. So I was like, okay, file that in the back of your head. Don't ever do that. Then I got this job in sales, and I ended up selling technical equipment for a company out of Switzerland. Long story, but what happened was when I was at McDonnell Douglas, we were buying equipment from them. I was in a training class to be trained how to use that equipment, and the people who did the training thought I was smart, right? Because questions I was asking, things I was doing, whatever. So when they heard I wasn't at McDonnell Douglas anymore, they called and hired me immediately. So I had this great opportunity to go to work for this company in Switzerland. So I had the Midwest territory, and I went into sales. So, something I learned about sales. So you got to create compensation plans for salespeople. only person I knew who knew anything about sales was my sales manager, because he was my boss. And he had this really cool plan about how you do compensation plans. I didn't know any better, so I thought it was really cool too. But essentially, whatever your target was, you had a sales target, and everything you sold up till that target, you got your regular commission on. And then anything you sold over your target, you got double commission on. It's like, fantastic. That's the greatest thing in the world. So, guess what I did? I sold lots of stuff over my target. And guess what my boss did every year? Raise my target! It's like, that's so weird. Like, why would anyone do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And then I thought, oh, they want me to make less money. They're not pleased with the amount of money I'm making. Well, that's weird. If I sell more, shouldn't I make more money? It's like, this is so weird. So I doubled my I doubled my income in a few years. And for 2 years in a row, I made lots and lots of money. And then when I started, my target was $500,000 a year. And when I left, it was over $3 million a year, right? So I figured I was, okay, don't say get screwed.
That's okay.
Being taken advantage of for about $2.5 million, right? So note to self, never change a sales rep's target. So those are some things that I learned when I was on that side, right? So I worked there for about 5 years, and so I'm starting to get a pattern, right? 5 years at McDonnell Douglas, 5 years at Leica. And my father had started a shoe business. Now, my father had been in the shoe business for a long time, for 30 years, and he lost his job, and he started his own business. When that business got big enough to where he needed an office manager, he asked me to come and run the office for him. He's like, we need to implement some computers. We're typing our invoices, and this is like the early 1990s. We're typing our invoices on a typewriter, and my parents' garage was the warehouse, so stacked boxes of shoes. I'm sure you've never had that experience yourself. Yes, cars go in the garage. Not at my house growing up. So in any case, what was interesting about it was I said, well, I'm sort of trained in computers and technology, and I deal with people who build really big things and want to measure them. And you're in the fashion business. And so I was like, I don't really know. I mean, that's like selling electrical equipment or technology or computers. It's all the same thing. We're selling shoes. Selling is selling. He says, well, why don't you come to a shoe show with us? So I go to this trade show, right? Now, the most fascinating thing about going to a shoe show for the first time, I don't know if you've ever been to a fashion show of any sort, but a clothing show or a shoe show, the people who are buyers are very self-expressed with their clothing, the colors in their hair, the amount of piercings and body tattoos that they have. They're really self-expressed. That's not what I was thinking when I first saw everyone. I was scared. I'm like, they give this person a key to the store? That's like I was afraid of this situation, and I didn't know any better, right? So it's like, I'm not thinking that this is for me. So my dad asked me to come to work for him, and I said no. And then the next year at Leica, that was my previous company, my income went down by 25% because I had raised my quota. It's like, wow, I'm done. And that was the day that I realized what it was that makes me successful. And sometimes you think about, what is it that makes me successful? Like, I never really knew what it was because it's the water I swim in. But I've been successful. I've been given jobs, and I've played sports, and I've done a lot of different things, and I've just been successful at it. I thought I was just lucky. Like I was just born this way, or maybe it's some habit I picked up when I played basketball when I was little or something. Like I didn't know what it was. But I actually realized what it was when I decided to leave Leica and go to work for my dad. And what it was, I usually group people into 2 groups because I don't like complications. 3 is way too many for me. I get analysis paralysis and I'm done. So 2 different groups. There's people who produce results and people who don't produce results, right? You really want to be surrounded by results producers, right? I mean, if you have a choice, right? So I produce results, that's good. But lots of people produce results. And so I was thinking about it, and what I realized is I actually make it my personal goal to over-deliver. To always over-deliver. So, okay, if I'm asked to do this, I do this, I make it in color, I do it 10 ways, I add additional information, like I do more than I'm asked to do as part of my, that's just my self-expression. Like, I want to do a great job. If I'm going to do a job, it's not going to be half done. If I clean my kitchen, I need like an entire day, right? It's like if someone details your car, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to really, like all the grease, like all of it, right? So in being someone who over-delivers, what I realized was I want to hire people that are results producers and as many people who over-deliver as possible, right? So I go to work for my dad. It was a little bit scary at first. I mean, you know, I had been successful elsewhere, and my dad asked me to go to work for him. I was like, wow. Okay, so now what? What if I fail in front of my dad? All of a sudden, I didn't feel so successful anymore. You know, or what if he doesn't treat me like an adult because I've always been his kid, right? What if he doesn't value my opinion? So I had all of these concerns and worries. And I had taken some courses from Landmark Education, for those of you who've heard about Landmark Education. And one of the things I learned from them is, if you're concerned about something, talk about it. So I called my dad and I said, I want to go to work for you and I have some concerns. He was like, clink, clink, clink. Who are you and what did you do with my daughter? She does not want to go to work for me. But I told him, you know, all my concerns. I was concerned because my sister and brother-in-law already worked there. I was going to be their boss. I was concerned I wouldn't make as much money as I was making before. I was concerned I would disappoint my dad. Like, I'm sure you guys have a lot of these same concerns. Like, you think about, you worry about things. I mean, I'm a worrier. I'm sure everybody has something to worry about. So I told him those were the things I was worried about. And then what happened was he said, wow, that's the only things that are concerning you? I'm like, uh-huh. And he said, well, I'm your dad. I would never pay you less money than you were making. I was like, right, perfect. Right. He is on my side. He said, and I've already talked to your sister and brother. They wouldn't rather have anyone else in the world than you watching over the company because they trust you. I'm like, right, that's good too. And he said, well, and you're never in this alone. Like, if you weren't successful, we would all be failing.